Now back to the Eric Vaughn Show on 1290 WNCS, the talk of the town.
Back with you on 1290 WNCS, 411. And the situation in Darfur has created a number of difficult situations for certainly for the people there in the region, for various political figures here in this country, social activists and others. It has also sparked some moves by people in our state, specifically State Representative Fred Kessler has proffered legislation that calls for the United States, or excuse me, for the state of Wisconsin to divest its interest of in financial interest in Sudan. And in a discussion we had last week with Fred Kessler and Sachin Chetta, who is one of the organizers of the state's efforts to save Darfur, there were some people who thought that their point of view was distorted, to quote the word used by those who have objected to the points that they raised. It was suggested that I invite to the show Minister Akbar Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, who I'm told has made several visits to Sudan and was present on Sunday during Minister Farrakhan's Savior's Day address, at which the president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, spoke and addressed some of the concerns that people in this country have, and people around the globe, I think, have about the situation in Sudan. Welcome to the program, Minister Muhammad. How are you?
Yes, thank you very much, brother, for having me this afternoon. And to our brothers and sisters in the audience, assalamu alaikum. And I'm listening carefully about the Darfur. Before we start on it, I just would like, with your permission, just to make an opening comment about Minister Farrakhan's historic return to the podium after nearly 7.5 months of absence and 14 hours on the table, 23 days in the hospital recovering. And indeed, we could see the hand of God was on him. He looked very well Sunday. He started off a little slow. His voice not as strong, but as he rolled into his message, his voice got strong about a minute. And we had a little over 55,000 people present, and as quite naturally, no one can get the right count, but we counted 55,000. Excellent audience. We were really pushing, and the brothers in the FOI and our friends and well-wishers and associates were pushing to get that 65,000 in there, but we did make a little better than 55,000. I spoke to the minister this morning. He asked me to extend his love and greetings to all in the radio shows that I'm doing across the country, and he's looking forward to talking to the brothers and sisters even in a smaller setting, but it's short of a miracle the way he appeared on that podium Sunday.
Well, I know from the photographs that I've seen from Sunday's event, you could hardly tell that he ever had a sick day.
Yeah, I mean, really, really remarkable. At the convention, keeping in tune with your subject, we had a satellite feed, a live satellite, two-way satellite from the Sudan with none other than the president of the Sudan himself. 1 week before our conference, or a little less than 1 week, I returned from the Sudan, and I took with me our chief of staff, Brother Leonard Farrakhan Muhammad, his first trip to Darfur. And we met with the president, and we asked the president, look, there's so much controversy about the Sudan and Darfur, and I want to say to the brothers and sisters in the audience, whenever you mention Darfur, you should say Darfur, the Sudan, because in just saying Darfur, 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 it makes it as if it's a separate entity, and some people who do not know their geography well or do not know Africa think that Darfur now has become a country in itself, even though Darfur is as big as the country of France. It has 6.5 million people, but it is a part of the largest land area country in Africa, which is the Sudan. So I took him to Darfur so he could see. We went to the refugee camps. We went to Al Flasher, the capital of Darfur. You know, Darfur has like 3 states within Darfur, northern Darfur, western Darfur, and southern Darfur. And so we went, we talked to the people, intense conversation in the camp. And the most touching part about it is when we finished up with the back and forth exchange through a translator and those who agreed and disagreed, they came to us as we were walking out of that camp, and through the translator said, "Look, my brother, we just want to go home." And that really touched me.
Who were the people you were speaking to?
I was speaking to the people from the villages. It's called the internally displaced people. The difference between a refugee is someone who is out of his home country in a camp, and internally displaced people are people within the country but are not living in their home area or in their village. So we were on the Sudanese side of the border talking about the internally displaced people, called IDPs. Here's what I want to say about it, and I don't know how long will we be on this program. How long is your program, my brother?
I'm here until 6 o'clock, and you're welcome to stay as long as you like.
Well, I want to at least, if I could stay 30, 35 minutes.
You're welcome to stay as long as you... You know, I would love to, whatever amount of time we need to take to clarify some issues is what I'd like to...
Okay, and let me say this first. I've been going to the Sudan since 1977, my first trip there. So I'm not a newcomer to the Sudan. I've been there many, many times. It is a beautiful country. I lived in Ghana for 12 years. But I told Minister Farrakhan if there were any other country in Africa that I would want to make my home and live in, it would be the Sudan. Because of just the sheer beauty of the country, the diversity of the people. I've been to Juba in the south. I've been all over the country, and I have a sense of the Sudan. And this is why it hurts me to see a country being broken apart, not by just internal dynamics, but outside forces that have a problem with an Islamic-led government. And it's very clear to me that the masses of people in America have been misled on the question of Darfur. If you ask them, how did the problem in Darfur start? What started this problem in Darfur? When did it start? If you ask the average person who belongs to Save Darfur, and then, you know, I'm going to say straight up on this show to your listening audience, you need to investigate who is Save Darfur. Where did they come from? Who is financing full-page ads in the New York Times, though they have cut back in the last few weeks, but sometimes 3 days a week? How did one day it was 200,000 people killed, 2 days later it was 400,000 people killed? If there are 400,000 people killed by the so-called Janjaweed, then there must be mass graves somewhere.
May I ask you, and since we're going to be together, let's. It would be too much for me to try and come back and ask you a ton of questions following some of our discussion. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a question as we come to points that I think warrant a question. If do we know where the organization Save Darfur came from? Do we know? Do you know the answer to that?
Well, it's a Jewish-led organization.
Okay.
When I first looked it up, it started somewhere in Indiana, and now it's in New York. All of the top people in it are not black people or Africans who are concerned. They've tried to recruit some, but it's a Jewish-led organization.
Okay.
It's funded and financed by them. A full-page ad in the New York Times, you can get a discount at $36,000, but the ads that they've been running really cost $48,000 plus.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the current figures, and the reason I know is because when Minister Farrakhan wanted to run full-page ads, we paid for a full-page ad in the U.S. Day. It goes up to $200,000 for the artwork and to put an ad in there on a certain day. So if you take all of the ads and add them up that have been run, that money could have fed hundreds of thousands of people in refugee camps in the Sudan. Then the march that they had in Washington on May 29th, 2006, Even the Washington Post said that there were more Jewish people there, and I have nothing against Jewish people, but the thing is, why is this Jewish agenda for Darfur? Any death is painful, whether it's 2 people killed in Darfur. But 3.5 million people have been killed in eastern Congo. I haven't seen one rally or one march, one protest at one embassy, whether it's Rwanda or Uganda,